And I spent the morning with Louise today, and she was going to pop in today, but something came up, so there was going to be a special guest, but maybe next month when we do a free webinar. She said that because she's, retired from Hay House now, so she's not doing that type of thing, but she really said she wanted to do some fun things together with me. We're going to do a castor oil video where I'll do castor oiling on her body to teach everyone how we do it, and some of the techniques that she and I do together weekly. And she wants to pop in on our webinar, so she said so everyone can see how much fun we have and how much we laugh, which is so lovely. But we were talking about the vital importance of being in nature. And that's actually something that I crave. When I moved to San Diego almost 20 years ago, I really had to adjust because of being on the concrete all the time, because I was so used to just being in the forest and the artificial light, all of the light pollution. So I actually crave the darkness, and I crave the embrace that only a forest can give me. And I actually crave the humidity of the East Coast, because here in San Diego it's so dry. So I prefer to live here, but I do crave the other for balance. And in terms of cravings, I'll jump right into to that. And if you have a question, I just want to say, first of all, welcome to every one of you that's here. It's so fun to do this. And it's such a surreal experience, because I know I'm talking to some amazingly beautiful people, but I can't see your faces, but I can still feel you. So it's kind of a surreal thing for me. So if you have questions that pop up, feel free to pop them into the chat window, and I'll scroll through as we can, and Tracy will get to see them. But cravings, I know a lot of people relating to health have a lot of questions and experiences with cravings. And I think it's because cravings are powerful. And we are not taught as children or as humans, as people, to listen to our bodies. So I have a 3-year-old, and I've watched so often, observing people with children and observing even people with my son. When a child falls or has a boo-boo or bumps their head or falls at the playground, people often say, "Oh, you're fine, shake it off." Or if they do, they'll go, "Oh, great, shake it off, good job." And that's so unfortunate, because people are reinforcing this idea of it's not okay to feel. Versus, if a child falls, what about give them a moment to see how they feel, instead of tell them how they feel, instead of tell them, "You're fine, shake it off." So, and as a parent, or as, you don't even have to be a parent, but as anyone who, when you watch a child fall, it's terrifying, because you just want to help, So I have to kind of resist that urge and catch myself to say, okay, take a breath and allow him or the child to see how they feel in that moment. And then they can reach out and say, "I need help," or, "Wow, I am fine, I can shake that off." But I think that's a root point where we're shown by our parents and the people around us that we look to for guidance as to a mixed message of what's arising within the body. What kind of messages is our physical body, our nervous system, our brain telling us, versus what am I shown is an appropriate response related to my body. And I think that our culture across the board disempowers us from the profound wisdom that we carry around in our body. There is no one who knows you better than your body. There's no one that has been with you through every experience. And let me tell you, from my experience of working on bodies and working with people and working with my body, your tissues remember, your tissues recall every moment, every emotion, every time something challenging was said to you or something good. So just with my family this past week, my toddler was having a little trouble transitioning with the time change, and was sleep deprived and was really tired and didn't want to go to sleep because his cousins were there, and it's a 15-year-old cousin has a lot of attitude at the moment. And my son, was melting down a little bit because a balloon popped. So from our perspective, it's kind of it can be kind of comedy, or to say like, wow, my toddler's melting down because of a balloon or because of something that seems insignificant. And what happened was he was really so upset that this blue balloon popped and it was his favorite, and can we glue it back together because it's so important. And as toddlers or as teenagers, we have an incredible amount of hormones pumping through us. And as a toddler, we don't have the prefrontal cortex yet in order to have impulse control or to be able to say, well, I'm being irrational. The balloon popped, it's not a big deal. But all these emotions, and we're sleep deprived, and my nephew was laughing at him. And I looked at him and I said, don't laugh at him. It's no matter how silly it might seem when someone is upset, it's never okay to laugh at them or to belittle their feelings. And the message that I got from that is, unfortunately, that's what we have been taught to do with ourselves. And we ignore the messages, and worse yet, we judge ourselves, or worse yet, we punish ourselves, or resent ourselves. So when a craving arises, we don't listen to it and say, wow, thank you, body. I so appreciate that you've gotten my attention. Because the whispers or the sweet longings or the sweet communications that arise from our body to get our attention are often overlooked or ignored or swept under the rug. And then what is something that really motivates people is food. So that's usually something that is the only thing that gets our attention. So it's really powerful. And then what happens, people have a craving that they might give into, and then they think it's about willpower or being weak, and really it's quite the opposite. So really we have to come back to listening to the body and recognizing what those messages are, and they're simply the body longing to be heard and longing to be acknowledged and appreciated. Because really, what's the moral of the story? We all just want to be loved, feel appreciated, and feel heard. And I often use this example, and I'll share it again because we can all learn it again, even myself. It's important to rehear this again and again. If you're wanting to tell your best friend or your spouse something really important, and you begin to tell them, and they are in fact not listening to you, we feel hurt. So we might get louder and try to express what we want, our sentiment, with more enthusiasm or more attitude or hurt or emotion. And then if in fact this person is not listening, or they're more focused on doing the dishes or doing something that seems more important, we're going to get pissed off. We're going to get animated. We're going to feel hurt. And unfortunately, what can happen next is a big dramatic outflux, or worse, we could shut down and no longer feel like we can trust our friend or trust our spouse. And our closest friend, our closest ally, our closer than our spouse is in fact our body. And our body, we should really treat it and respond to it like it is our absolute best friend. So when your body is asking, and I know that for many people it's hard to listen to the body at first, and that's where I really like to take people through. I offer an 8-week course to really take people through steps of having more compassion and listening to the body and learning how to manage it and respond to it, and really practically apply that beautiful practice into day-to-day, which really is the secret, I think, to health and happiness and balance. So if we're not listening to the body, those whispers aren't going to be heard. So then the body is going to be louder, and it's going to bark, and it's going to feel disrespected, and then it might poke and have pain and have symptoms. So did everyone lose sound and video, or is that just Melody? Just let me have a little message there. Everybody else, can you hear and see me? Okay, I know Tracy can. So unfortunately, if the body isn't feeling heard and it's hurt, and it continues to try to express herself or hisself to you and isn't heard, that's when pathology or illness or symptoms rise to the surface. So Just want to be sure. Okay, great. Okay, good. Melody, hopefully you can see that. You just need to hit the blue reconnect button at the bottom. Okay, good. Thank you, ladies. Thank you, everyone. So with cravings, I think that that is really your body's way of trying to draw your attention in a powerful way to say, come here, listen to me. I'm going to use food. I'm going to use, something really powerful to draw our attention. And yeah, there's a list of things that I'm going to share with you, like what some of the symptoms actually mean. Chocolate, if you are craving chocolate, it's because your body is actually needing magnesium. Or minerals, if you're craving sugar. And often I find when we're craving sugar, it's because you need sleep. Right? So as a new mom, when my son was first born, and I don't drink coffee because I really don't think that coffee, it doesn't work for me, and it's very dehydrating. But in order to function, my body was really craving chocolate. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. So my body was wanting the magnesium and, the relaxation aspect of the magnesium, but also the sugar. It's an instant energy upliftment, right? And when the body is craving sugar, often you have to look at, are you not allowing joy into your life? Where are you blocking joy? Where are you blocking any sweetness to touch you? And then, in Louise's brilliant work, the pancreatic issues, it's about the joy of life. So about deserving, you really start to examine ourselves and look at ourselves in a way of the sense of deserving, of do you block or do you not allow love or nourishment and joy and sweetness in, and not in the way of just food, So there are so many different types of food that we eat on a regular basis. And physical food is only one of them. But we are trained in our culture, because it's a profit industry, and it's an easy fix. We're trained to rely more on food than acknowledging the other types of food that we get. So in the spiritual path, we know that 90% of reality is what's internal, what's inside of us, and 10% is on the outside. But most people spend 90% focused on the outer world and only 10% on the inside, when as we switch that, we become more balanced. So the different kinds of food that there are, there's psychic food. So right now, some of the psychic food that you're eating is this lesson and this teaching that I'm sharing with you. And the sounds around you, like the way the light is pouring in this window on me, and I can see the clouds and this beautiful tree right outside my window. So your environment is an important type of food that you take in. Whether you watch television, the news, listening to gossip, the kind of people that are around you, all of these are psychic food that you're taking in. The way clothing feels on your body is to be processed. All of these experiences are processed. There's also spiritual food, and in yoga we talk about that as the breath. So the more that we're connected to our breath and a long, deep breathing and allowing our prana or our life force to flow and to be open and sort of in a raw state to allow life or the divine to touch and dance with us. It's when we start to shut down on the spiritual level and get overwhelmed with psychic food or psychic experiences or unprocessed emotions in the body, that when we then rely on things like sugar or physical food to further numb the body and numb our ability to be in the moment with ourselves. So, and I love in this most recent 8-week course that I just completed with this amazing group of women, I did a class on Cravings as Wisdom, and it really touched this beautiful woman, Johanna. And each week you could see, I'd ask everyone, okay, so what did you work on this week? What really touched you? What really grounded in you? And she'd say, oh, Cravings as Wisdom. It just, it touched her in a way that made the biggest difference. And it did for me also when I really started contemplating it, in my own path of sugar addiction and I was definitely brought up in a family where my father didn't communicate emotion with me, didn't communicate connection, but we bonded through having ice cream together or chocolate cake for breakfast, or, I'm going to be the cool dad. Let's go have, chocolate cake for breakfast. And when I started to recognize it for that, now when I wake up in the morning and I'll go, wow, I really want to have some ice cream for breakfast, I can say, oh, wow, that's my body's wanting connection. And my body's longing for maybe some more sleep or a hug, So here's an exercise that I want to share with you. And this is an exercise to sink in a little more deeply. It's simple, but within it, you can learn a lot about yourself. And the moral of my story here today with Cravings is really to listen more to your body and listen in a way that you go to the listening without a concept of what you're going to hear. You can't sit down to a friend and already be thinking you know what they're going to say or already be working on your response. You have to be present and in the moment in a way where you're ready to hear something new. And when you approach yourself with that in the moment magic, that's really where profound healing can occur. So next time you're feeling a craving, and thank you, Melissa. You said the course was amazing and life-changing for me. I thank you. And I agree it was for me also. And I'm touched. So next time you have a craving, I want you to notice it and say, wow, I'm craving chocolate, or I'm craving bread or chips, or whatever it might be for you, and it might be something really specific. I want you to take a moment and stop and sit down and drink a glass of water. And as you drink that glass of water with the intention of saying, with this water, I would like clarity to arise within me. And I want to hydrate and nourish my cells. And sweet body, I hear you. I hear that you have something you want to say. I hear that you have been attempting to get my attention. What is it that you really want? What is it you're really craving? I love you. I want to hear you. And I want to give you what you really need. And just listen to see what your body might say. And you might be surprised. It might say, I'd really like to go take a cold shower. It might say something wacky like, please walk around the house. Please go outside and put your feet in the earth barefoot. It might say, I still want the chocolate. And that's okay. It doesn't mean, I never, ever want anyone to feel like you're depriving yourself. That's absolutely not the message. The message is to listen more deeply. The lesson is to love and to recognize that a craving is an asking for love. Because food is nourishment. It's a way that we can love ourselves. And 3-5 times a day when we eat or snack, we have the opportunity to love ourselves and create a body that will become a vehicle for the kind of life that we want to create, to enable us to have the life experiences that we want to have and that our soul is longing to have. So to think of food that way and allow a craving to be a message on the path of getting there. So what might that be? So to just allow yourself to be heard, and magic just comes in that because we've been ignoring the signals from the body for so long. And like I said, often the only messages that we will listen to are about food. So, the beauty is, here's a beautiful, hour class, but I really want that we have a few spots left in the webinar course starting this Tuesday and another one starting in October that's in the morning, so it's a little bit better for people in the UK or can connect midday. But in that we're able to go a lot more deeply. And what I love about it is, so here I'm talking to, basically I'm looking at a picture of myself and little Tracy at the bottom beautifully. But in the course, I'm able to see everyone's face and to do and utilize my gift, which is to get readings from people and hear what it is your body is saying. So of course, if I'm sitting next to someone in the middle of a craving, I could most easily say, well, your body's actually needing a nap, or your body actually needs this, or it needs zinc, in a premenstrual time. But so in that course, I'm able to really tune in that way. And it's so beautiful to have that group experience. So I just want to invite you, if you have any questions about it, email us or ask on the Facebook page or ask Tracy. It really is a profound journey. And what's so great is everyone that took the course didn't want it to end. So we've created an advanced class already. And I really love being able to be with everyone in this way. So yeah, so in terms of cravings, so some of the things that I find most often that they could be are, the majority are that a person's tired, right, when you're craving sugar, or you're not feeding yourself spiritually. You're not filling that spiritual well, right? So, okay, wait, let me see if there's a question. Let me respond to this. So is it Mio? That's a lovely name. How to release emotions from the body? Do we need to release it from the body? That's a very good question. So yes, we don't need to release all emotion in a sense, right? So emotion in the body, I liken it to being in the ocean. When you experience an emotion, especially negative emotion, that we're not trained, just like I said in the beginning, we're not trained to acknowledge messages from the body. We're not given permission or taught how to respond to ourselves, or to even acknowledge that we might be having a feeling that is discomfort or makes waves, like when the parent says, oh, you're fine, shake it off, versus, wow, are you okay? How do you feel? And then the child can say, that scared me, or I'm hurting, So as children, right out of the gate, we're taught, wow, people around me don't want me to express that I'm having discomfort. The big people around me don't want me to have to cry. People tell me, don't cry, shake it off. So these are really mixed messages. So when we have feelings that arise in the body, particularly negative emotions, most people stuff them down until they explode. So they do get stored in the body. And in the course, I do a whole class on, introducing the different tissues of the body and where certain emotions get stored, and how to listen to them, how to respond to them, and some tools on how to release them. But to be in real time, right? And to be in real time would mean, as life is occurring right now, I engage with it in a way that I'm able to stay processed. So I'm not going to store negative emotions so that I have to deal with it later. I stay in the moment, and I'm responsible with my feelings and my cravings and the messages that arrive in me. I'm responsible to them, just like I'm responsible to my relationships in my life. I'm responsible to Tracy, who works with me. I'm responsible to communicate with her and to uphold my agreements. Unfortunately, most people honor the agreements and relationships they have with other people more than they do the one that they have with themselves. And that needs to change for health, and when emotions arise, I liken it to being in the ocean. So, it's like when you're in the swells of an ocean, whether you're in the boat or you're sitting in the water yourself, it's like the intensity comes like, and kind of let it pass through you. You allow it to move through you versus stuffing it. And this is where that emotion gets stuck and gets stored in the tissue. And that's in many ways what I hear when I work with a person. When I go into a body and I touch them, or I see or I feel something, it's the reverberation of stuck or stuffed emotions or messages in their body that they haven't acknowledged or allowed themselves to even hear in themselves. So we do owe it to our body to listen, and to listen with love and kindness, to allow that emotion to be released, because ultimately that is what becomes symptoms and issues and stubbed toes and pathology and cancer and all kinds of the awful issues that arise in people, or just frustration or irritability in your family. So yeah, hopefully that answers your question. And again, any questions that arise or comments, please just pop them into the chat window. I really like interacting with people versus just speaking to myself on video screen, even though I can feel all of you. So Tracy, I know you wanted me to cover something here. I need to pull that up. And I want to invite you, in the 8-week course, so the dates are September 15th, Tuesdays at 4 p.m. It's 8 weeks. We take off 1 week in the middle. And then another 8-week course starting October 14th at 11 a.m. There's only 2 or 3 more spots left in the September course, and a few more than that in October. And we go much more in depth, and we bring to the table 2 or 3 of the major issues that each person are working with, so that we can really make some changes. And it's amazing to have the accountability of week to week, and it's done in such a loving and beautiful context. So yeah, so okay, and then also I am really excited to take more of the topics that came up on Facebook when we asked some of the things that you want to hear about. So always just let me know things that you want to talk about, and I will do webinars, because I've been enjoying this context more. So some of the cravings, as I mentioned, if you're craving chocolate, so the body usually needs magnesium. And magnesium is important. It's a really important mineral. And one thing I want to say is, if you drink purified water, you want to be sure that you remineralize your water. So yes, I absolutely believe that it is vital that we not be drinking like city water that has fluoride in it and all kinds of gnarly things. And I'm going to have some nice spring water that has minerals in it. Because our body, each and every cell, needs to have an electric charge. And that electric charge is done through minerals. And if we are not properly mineralized, your body can then pull it from your bones or other areas. And if you're drinking water that is mineral depleted, so when you use like a reverse osmosis or a purifier, it takes all the gunky, crappy stuff out of your water, but it also takes many of the minerals. So you need to replenish that with minerals. It's vital for your health. There is an epidemic of mineral depletion today, and I think that's manifold. I think it's because of the water, but also like magnesium is eaten up anytime you're stressed. So who isn't stressed, right, in today's world? And our nervous system functions in the parasympathetic and the sympathetic, right? Those are the 2 aspects of our central nervous system. And the sympathetic nervous system is our fight and flight, intensity, focus, hypervigilant. So that happens anytime you get in the car to drive. And the parasympathetic is our rest and digest and heal and nourish. So if you're trying to eat your lunch while driving, you are not going to be able to rest and digest and really take in your food. We have, as a culture and in the world today, an epidemic of being in the sympathetic nervous system. We are hyper on alert as a culture and as a people. So when we're stressed, the body eats up magnesium. So you can see why so many people love chocolate. I mean, besides the fact that it's delicious and it's a wonderful treat, but I think when you're craving it, you're craving it on a long-term basis, you really need to look at yourself and your world and your life in terms of how are you able to access and really strengthen your ability to tap into your parasympathetic nervous system. And I really want to come up with a good theme song. Maybe Tracy can help me to that. Let's Get Physical song by Olivia Newton-John. So let's get parasympathetic. I think that would be really fun. We could do a little dance. And then we could eat little chocolate bars. And in terms of, cravings, like any cravings, if you go to something all the time, I always tell people it's really worth examining if you are relying upon any external substance for a certain response in your body. So if every day you come home and you're stressed, so you have a glass of wine, or every day you rely on coffee to wake up in the morning, that's worth examining. Because yes, our body requires food to function, but it's not like one thing in order to function well I just think anytime you rely on a substance for a nervous system response, it's worth examining or finding what's underneath it, right? So in terms of the coffee, I think anyone who drinks coffee on a regular basis, and I know many people do, and I always get like wild faces. They're like, "You're not going to make me give up coffee, are you?" And I'll say, "No, but just think about it," right? So just to imagine, or at least once a year, take a week off. Just explore. It's worth exploring what's underneath your craving. It just really is. So, yeah, so magnesium is often all about stress and learning how to manage stress and how to tap into the parasympathetic nervous system. I worked with an amazing woman who was a female admiral in the Navy, which is like the highest level you can get in the Navy. And she was super high-powered, intense, fierce, ferocious, powerful, amazing. And she was really struggling to lose weight and was working out all the time and was intense about it. And she came to me, and you know, I listened to her body just when she first came up the stairs when I met her, and I thought, oh, she's not really gonna like what I say, but I have to listen to the wisdom that I hear. And I told her, okay, well, here's our first session. I just let her lie on the floor. She lied on the floor for an hour, and she did that twice a week, and she started to lose weight. And the moral of the story is she had for years not been feeding her parasympathetic nervous system, and we need to learn how to make that your base. That is your home base. So go out in the world and be intense and fierce and hypervigilant and make amazing things happen in the world, but come back to home base. Feed the parasympathetic nervous system. Nourish yourself. Be kind. Allow yourself to unravel. And then go out and be wild and creative and focused, and then come back. And it's the opposite. I can't tell you how many people they lay on my table, and it's like they've forgotten how to go there. So again, that's something in the course that I really work with people on establishing that connection, because that's the most important connection in your relationship with yourself as a way to love yourself. So parasympathetic. So breads and pasta, that type of thing. So bread cravings is usually nitrogen, and you can get that from your greens and dark leafies. And emotionally, breads are usually about numbing or stuffing. It's like to fill yourself up if you're not feeling full or emotionally nourished or spiritually nourished. So it's okay sometimes to sit in the craving and just feel kind of the emptiness and say, what is it that you really want me to fill you with? Because bread fills us up, right? It goes into the stomach organ, which is over on the left side, underneath kind of the rib cage and the breast. And it kind of expands, right? You get your fluids in there, your hydrochloric acid and your enzymes and your digestive juices, and it expands that bread and it helps us feel full. So, I recently did a juice fast, not really a juice fast, a juice cleanse, because I really don't believe in fasting. And I would only recommend juicing, and I didn't just juice, I also had vegetables and steamed vegetables. But I would only recommend doing that in the summer, and I am putting together a seasonal cleansing course, which is going to be really fun. That's a real passion of mine. But even me, when I went through that process of, having juice, I was like, wow, I'm really not hungry, but I was still having cravings. And I was like, okay, that's interesting. And then from that place, I was able to see all of these emotional undercurrents that came up that I didn't even realize were there, that I was able to recognize, like, wow, this is really a conversation that I need to go home and have with my partner. I didn't even recognize that there was something there to bring up, because, in the busyness of being a mom and running a business and taking care of everyone, it's easy to overlook some of those seemingly smaller things that will escalate. So, when the bread cravings, again, just that little exercise of stop, sit down, drink a glass of clean water, and ask yourself, with this water, I cleanse my cells, and I ask you, sweet body, what is it that you're really craving? What is it that you're really wanting? What can I truly feed you that would nourish you? And maybe it's a full meal. Maybe it's a salad. Maybe you, to that day, hadn't had time for a real meal, so you're craving the sugar or the bread to fill you up. Maybe it's because you felt really hurt because your boss just gave you a really hard time, so you're emotionally feeling unstable, so the bread is to ground you. So also, the nitrogen you can find in nuts and seeds, but be sure you're soaking your nuts and your seeds, and you're only eating raw ones because you don't want to deal with the rancid oils. So again, that's something that we go much more deeply in the 8-week course that I want to invite you to take if it feels right to you, if it feels like a right calling, because it's such a profound, and I'm really passionate about it because I saw how beautifully each woman profoundly shifted herself. And it was just women in this group, but it's definitely not just limited. And I'm thinking of this one woman who, one of the things we explore in terms of, and cravings are definitely play into this, is, the concepts that we have about ourselves. Like, there was one woman who was craving grains or that type of thing, and she had been doing the paleo diet for 2 years, but had also been having migraines for a long period of time. And she decided to because paleo is supposedly the most healthy way, and it might be for a lot of people, but it isn't for everyone. And she went ahead and had some healthy grains, and her migraines went away. And it was, she was holding herself to a standard that no longer served her. So she learned to listen to her body and sink in to see what was underlying the craving, instead of judging herself to say, well, you don't have the willpower to just honor this, this diet or this food concentration that we have. So that's, that was a beautiful, beautiful lesson. So salty foods, I think with salty food, a really great one is celery, or again, nuts. Crunchy sometimes is just, the body's or the emotions are craving some stimulation. The teeth, from a developmental standpoint, as children, when we first learn to masticate, when I work with children, I work with people that have sensory challenges, which means, one or two of the senses are either overstimulated or understimulated. So, like, I am very auditorially oversensitive. So it's almost like my cup is small, so it gets filled up very quickly. So sometimes when we have sensory imbalances, which we all do, in autism, children with autism all have sensory processing disorders. So that's an extreme, and we can see that and use as a good example, but we all have that to some extent. So I find if I'm feeling really overwhelmed with sounds and that kind of food and stimulation, I will have certain food cravings, because the chewing, or, like with autistic children, they might give them, something to fiddle with their hands, because the act of stimulating another sense relaxes another. So as you invite yourself to listen more deeply to the craving and ask what's underneath it, you can learn an incredible wisdom about yourself. So for Marie, Jose, and Diane, so that's what I would say in terms of, some of the crunching. Sometimes that's often, the stimulation to distract you from something else. So Rebecca's asking, what are some examples of some of the shifts people made in your course? So, so some of the people here that are in the course, if you want to share, so Melissa and so I saw Amy, Leah, and Emma, who's been a client of mine. She hasn't taken the course, but she's been a client and she's taking this course. So if anyone wants to share some of the things that the profound changes you made. So yeah, so Mio, that's a beautiful example. So we can always shift our cravings. So instead of eating, like potato chips, which have awful olestra and awful chemicals and that type of thing, and shift it to like a homemade kale chip, or, then it turns from, I'm going to honor the craving, I'm going to listen to what's underneath, and then I'm going to really love myself. I'm going to take the time to make a kale chip or go to the health food store and buy a kale chip. I actually just bought some kale chips today at Whole Foods because I had been traveling and didn't have anything. So then that's a way of honoring. So salty foods, you're often just craving, your body's needing the chloride, right? So salt isn't necessarily something to avoid or be afraid of. So salt is a mineral, good salt. So absolutely should not be having iodized salt or processed salt. And if you're someone who exercises intensely, you can also put a little bit of like pink salt or unprocessed salt in water to rejuvenate your body in that way. Also, silicone that is in nuts and seeds is something that, like the salty, sometimes comes. So Emma, happiness, that's good. So any specifics also so Amy, Leah, or Melissa, what are some of the changes that you've made? I would say that's a big question, but maybe I'll give them a chance, and then I can give some examples too. People, if you crave carbonated beverages, usually it's calcium. People are craving calcium. Premenstrual is often zinc, or and I really recommend for women to do like a blood builder during their cycle or after. And when women get their period and have premenstrual issues, I find that's usually their body is moving into a more of a subtle zone, or more into a raw zone. So to honor that by creating a safety chamber, so it's sometimes about, like the zinc, or about like actual replenishing the body, but it's also about creating a safe chamber where you can allow that, where the veils get thin, your body opens up and lets go. And in tribal or nomadic communities, that's when women would get the guidance for the month for the group. So they would come back and say, okay, for this month, we should travel east. It was a time when we're more connected and more in tune with higher consciousness. So if we're in a lifestyle that doesn't support that, and our nervous system knows, while we're getting more raw and more sensitive, the body will have premenstrual syndromes like cravings or cramping or back pain, to say, slow down, please listen, give me a bath, give me an Epsom salt bath, tune into me. So Amy Leah saying, one simple profound shift for me was speaking to my body sweetly. She gave me the example of kissing your own hand and gently asking, what are you trying to tell me? What do you need right now? So yeah, just to really be more kind to yourself and gentle, and to practically learn how to do that. And to, so it sounds simple, but it's really not simple to do when we're not taught that, we're not given. And in the course, we go through a process of really examining some of the concepts that we're given about health, to examine our belief systems, to strip down who we are as a healthy being, what were we taught, what we think our capacity is, where are the edges of that, and to learn things that you didn't notice about yourself, that we can love and release and shed, to step more powerfully into your true expression and what that means. Because so often we're carrying messages or archetypes or ideas that have nothing to do with us, and we're somebody else's projection. So Amy Leah has always spoken to herself with anger and impatience and hated my body. Now I want to weep when I think that my body is my closest, dearest friend and wants only what's best for me. It's amazing how I now have the compassion and kindness towards my body. That's huge. That's a huge shift. Yeah, that's huge. Oh. And Melissa's saying, I had many shifts on different levels, physical, spiritual, and emotional. Learning to listen to my body and her needs how to reconnect to my authentic self. You're having trouble typing, please feel free to share my shifts. Yeah. And Melissa, it's amazing how when we get to see each person in the group, over the course of the weeks, it was amazing to see the changes in everyone's face, to see the softening and the shifts. And Melissa and Jane, I mean, many people, but you two in particular, I felt like you shed such old images that, came forward as a hardness in the face, and as they fell away, there was just such a softer, more beautiful feminine presence, like a more authentic expression of you through. And it's a process. It's based on the book, Loving Yourself to Great Health. We go through the steps of that, but we go much more deeply. And it's really in the moment. Like I come to each class with a teaching and meditations and homework, or as I like to say, soul work and life crafting. So we can learn to craft the life that we want to have and to set up our life to support us. So I have a lot of practical tips and techniques and tools and love to set your life up in that way, to shed images and concepts that you have of yourself that you're carrying that aren't you, that you think have been you, to become more authentic and learn about your cravings, learn about what's underneath the self-hatred and the self and the pain and the symptoms and illness, and release that so you can step forward into that. I always say, like, the best way I can word it is I love to help people live more freely in their human body, to be able to have, in the world that we're in today, there's a lot of teachings on how to, live a divine life and sort of ascend. But I think there's a great benefit and vital, like the point of being human is to be human, to be in the human body, to take the divine nature of ourselves, which is this expansive, beautiful, angelic, energetic being, and experience that in our human body. And sometimes there's a lot of symptoms that come up. There's messages, there's a lot of hurt that maybe haven't been heard, and to be able to navigate that and to heal that and to love ourselves through that so you can really be in the body and really embrace that you're living with your best friend. So so there was one that I saw about, so Lily said that you craved a lot during your juice cleanse and also learned a lot about your body. It's a wonderful experience. I fully agree. It's amazing. Yeah, we had an 80-year-old in our course. So Melody, I would love some guidance to help your mom who has diabetes, no meds, and congestive heart failure. So the volume of fluid she retains is life-threatening. What can I do to help her shift this? Absolutely. I definitely think that the course would help you. And it's true that when we make a shift in ourself, we shift the people around us. And absolutely, many of the teachings and tips that we'll go over, you'll be able to help your mom with it. And obviously, Louise is going to be 89 in a few next month. So, and she and I work together, throughout the whole 8-week course. I'll come to her and say, this came up in the class, and I get her thoughts and feelings, and she loves to hear what comes up in it. And I just had a man in India reach out to me to say that he healed his diabetes just by reading the book, and was just came back from the doctor, and the doctor said, you're completely healed from it. I don't know what you did, but it was amazing. So, as we heal and we really listen to ourselves, I believe there's nothing that we can't heal. And I do understand that there are illness, we all have a finite experience in this human body. The human body has a finite journey. And, I was diagnosed with muscular dystrophy when I was 12 years old. And I still have symptoms that arise, but the beauty is how I relate to them. And the beauty is how I receive them with love and listen to them and allow them to guide me. And instead of looking at them like they're an irritating distraction from the life that I want, I listen and I embrace them from the perspective of, wow, thank you that you're part of my experience. And thank you so I can listen to you and love you, body. And it ends up taking me on a miraculous journey versus a distraction from what I think I should be experiencing. And I think that's the major shift in perspective, is that our body isn't distracting us and our symptoms are actually our friend. And we are absolutely not taught that. I've never heard anybody else tell me that, anything like that. So yes, getting older is inevitable. Aging is part of it, but it's you know, our body goes through changes, just like we're born this brilliant infant, newborn, and we grow up, we peak just like the ocean, and we, you know, but it's the breadth of our experience and the way that we embrace it. I mean, and Louise is such a brilliant experience. I learned so much from her as I've been with her for the last 12 years through, you know, her 70s into the 80s. It's amazing. It's amazing about how to really embrace that journey as just as fun as our 20s or our 30s or whatever age we are. So another question, let's see. Thank you, Melissa. Any other questions? So also, oh yes, so Amy, you know, really learning. We don't even often recognize sometimes what's underneath it, whether it's a feeling of feeling unworthy or that we don't deserve happiness, or, you know, it takes work to unravel and see what's underneath some of these things. So that's what I enjoy doing, is guiding people through that. So any other questions or comments? Have there been any major health shifts in the course? I do have a mother with an illness that I feel helpless to. She has multiple sclerosis and is declining. And your 5-year-old EJ is watching and he says, hi. Hi, EJ. Thank you for listening and being part of our experience together. You know, Rebecca, I think that, yes, I mean, definitely major health shifts occur. But the key is to make a health shift. It's really about our perspective of how we feel in our body. So it's about loving ourselves and loving ourselves with the symptom, with the issue. And of course, we go through how to eat, what foods are out there, you know, because we're in an industrial world that we have to constantly kind of stay abreast or on top of how food ingredients are slipping. And like when I was traveling, I took a picture I'll put on Facebook soon with the you know, they're changing the name of NutraSweet and aspartame, etc. You know, and many of those things really trigger multiple sclerosis. And multiple sclerosis and many of the neurological disorders, including the one that I was diagnosed with, have a lot to getting back into that parasympathetic nervous system and really learning how to nourish that and nourish the nerves. And I'll talk a little bit about how to dissipate heat in the nervous system and relate to life and riding the seasonal waves, which really, like, you know, in summertime we're in the heat, like, so today was over 100 degrees. I know for me, with a challenged nervous system, and really it's a sensitive nervous system. So I had issues as a gymnast, which is how my diagnosis came, but really I learned that it was a sensitivity versus a diagnosis. So I was able to learn about myself and learn about natural tools and techniques and ways to get inside of myself next to the symptom and discover how to balance that and how to dance with that in a way where I could heal and I could live. And now my symptoms are, like I said, a guidepost of, wow, I'm getting out of balance, I need to pull this back. Wow, I'm overstressed, I need to say no in a couple areas. Because that'll happen a lot if people don't know how to say no, if they don't know how to speak up for themselves, they'll get sick and their body will say no for them. You know, so these are all the things that we will learn. What's the root or what's underneath illness? So Yeah. So Rayanne, my Ahlea's specialty is loving and helping us to love ourselves more. I learned in these 8 weeks how to allow myself to be more present in the body, loving and forgiving myself even when I was struggling with your transition. Yeah. And Melissa said her medical practitioners noticed significant shift and improvement in her health. Great. So any other questions? Anything about the cravings or so sweets, like I said, is usually we need to take a rest. Minerals, tryptophan, breads, we need to address what we might be filling ourselves up with, nitrogen, dark leafy greens, and try, and you know, and I like to to give yourself you know, replacements. Experiment with the craving. Like, okay, this is what I'm craving, but I'm going to try this. I'm going to try this. So that's something that I'm fun with. And yes, I hope I'm saying your name, Mio or Mayo. I do have a garden. I grow most of my own vegetables, which I love to do, and I love the opportunity to live in San Diego and do so. Even though I did back in Jersey, even in the winter. Yeah, so Melody, the splitting of the nails, it's often a mineral. Yep. Yeah. So, and Emma, you're welcome for speaking to your hearts. It's my pleasure, and I really do feel it's such a privilege to be able to serve people on the path of being human and navigating the difficult and painful and scary zones of physical illness and symptoms and pain, to look at that differently and embrace your body as part of your journey and your profound spiritual path. And, you know, even like I have someone that I love very dearly, and their partner was just diagnosed with cancer. And, you know, to be able to ride that journey in the way with supplements and nutrition that supports that path, whether a person chooses chemotherapy or they choose, you know, a more naturopathic route, isn't my decision or judgment, but I can support no matter what someone chooses from a nutritional supplemental standpoint. And we go over all of that in the course in, you know, I go through, you know, what the supplements that I use and that I would recommend for people, you know, with the splitting of the nails, or what kind of magnesium or what have you. So, yeah. And then sometimes you just need a good nap, as Rayanne says, and it's true. And Rayanne, yeah, so the body's slow time around 2 p.m. is usually a cortisol dip, and that usually can come back to what I said earlier about the feeding the parasympathetic nervous system and really learning to make that home base and balance the self, and feeding the adrenals, which are these glands that sit on top of the kidneys, which produce adrenaline and cortisol and stress hormones, and precursors to sexual hormones. So it can create a world of hurt if we're really depleted and we're always in that sympathetic nervous system state of hypervigilance, and our adrenals are having to pump, and then we get depleted, and then we dip around 2 o'clock. So there's really cool little cocktail recipes that you can do around 2 o'clock to explore how to bump the body up, how to really feed your body and boost your energy at that time. B vitamins, magnesium, lemon, pomegranate juice with potassium. You know, there's a lot of different fun things that you can do. And Priscilla, welcome from Belgium. I actually have Belgium family. That's where some of my family's from. And we've made the course on a Tuesday, like right around this time, but also the Wednesday course is at 11 a.m. because I know I've got some people that I work with from Europe as well as Australia or Asia. So we're trying to find a way to serve everyone. So Mio, okay, good. You're welcome for answering the question. So Tracy, do we have a way that we can show that little video, sweets? Yeah, so the Wednesday course starts October 14th, and Tracy is a beautiful videographer, and she and I made a beautiful video that I think is 2 minutes, so we can either post it or show it. But you know, I want to just thank you for being here, and thank you for listening, and thank you for offering of yourself to be here to be a better version of you, or to learn more so you can help those people in your life, like your mom that you mentioned who is struggling. And yeah, I mean, it's so beautiful to connect with each other. And one of the things I love about the group is each week to come together and to feel that connectedness and that circle of love, and you know, to bridge the world with this intent of connecting to be better versions of ourselves, to be healthier, to be more balanced, to make the world better. So it's, I love that so much. So go ahead, Tracy, if you want to show the video, and then I'll. That's so good, Tracy. It's so interesting to watch yourself. Oh, and the sirens like it. Woo! So please, if you have any other questions about the course, feel free to ask them now. That's fine. I'd love to answer them. So thanks, Rayanne. So I'll take a moment, and I loved how one person said they were craving me. Did you see that, Tracy? And some of them, and I said, what are you craving? And let me know any other topics that you want to hear about, because I will be doing again. We took a little break in the summer, but once a month, a free course or a free webinar, just sharing some insights on different topics. So I obviously can't get into deep work on just one webinar like I can in the course, but I really enjoy doing them and getting some of the questions. I can't answer and work with each person individually like I can in the 8-week course, but I still enjoy doing it, and I know that it's a fun way to connect and build the community like this. So, all right, beautiful people. So want to say thank you for being here. And Tracy, thank you for organizing this and being such an awesome tech woman. And thank you to everyone for being here. Have a beautiful evening or morning wherever you are. And I hope to connect with you in the future in some capacity. So, mwah, bye.